Hey everyone, and welcome back to the True Detectives podcast. I'm Adrian Smith, and
I'm Dr. Julia Jones.
we are excited to we'll jump into another wild case with you all. So each day
Yeah.
we kind of explore, a real detective story. Digging into the details and all the strange turns and all the things that keep you guessing. So think of it as your daily dose of true crime with a dash of the unexpected.
That's right. Today we're taking you into the world of underground fight clubs, and our sources paint a picture that's pretty gritty and mysterious.
Yeah, and before we get started, don't forget to rate and follow the show if you're enjoying these investigations. We love taking you along on these wild rides.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's set the scene. We're following Detective Elias Carter, and he's infiltrating this underground fight club. And, the sources really emphasize that sensory experience, the stench of sweat and stale beer, the roar of the crowd, that raw energy. It's a world away from your typical police procedural, wouldn't you say?
It is. It really makes you wonder how a detective even begins to operate in that kind of chaotic environment. Think about it, the constant threat of violence, the need to blend in the psychological pressure of maintaining a cover. It's a far cry from analyzing evidence in a lab.
Right, and it really makes you appreciate the kind of mental fortitude these undercover detectives must have. So, right in the middle of all of this, Elias catches wind of this rising starfighter, and they call him Razor.
Razor.
Now, on the surface, Razor's just another ambitious fighter, climbing the ranks.
Yeah.
But there's something about his rapid success that raises some red flags for Elias.
It's fascinating because the sources suggest that Elias is picking up on these really subtle cues. It's not just about the wins and losses, it's the way that Razor fights, the almost ritualistic precision of his movements. Have you ever noticed how in those high-pressure situations, even small details can stand out to someone trained to observe?
It's like they develop a sixth sense for anything out of place.
Abs-
So this leads Elias to make a pretty bold move. He searches Razor's locker, and instead of finding the usual Fight Club contraband, he finds a vial. Not just any vial, though. This one is filled with a dark liquid and marked with a symbol that's drawn in blood. The sources refer to it as a blood rune.
Okay, now that's where this investigation takes a turn. The blood rune introduces this element of the unknown, something beyond the usual brutality of the Fight Club. It suggests a system of beliefs, maybe a code, perhaps even a darker purpose behind these fights.
And it's not long before things escalate. Razor turns up dead officially from an overdose. But here's the catch. That same blood rune symbol is found near his body. Suddenly, what seemed like a straightforward case of an ambitious fighter pushing too hard turns into something much more sinister.
It makes you question everything, doesn't it? Was the overdose truly accidental, or was there something more deliberate at play? And what role does this blood rune play in all of this?
So Elias hits a wall. His usual informants are terrified to talk. It's like they know something, but they're too afraid to say it out loud. That's when he makes a decision that really shows his dedication. And maybe a bit of recklessness, too.
What does he do? He decides to go deeper undercover, not just as an observer, but as a fighter himself. Talk about a commitment to getting the truth.
Right. The sources really highlight the transformation that Elias undergoes. It's not just physical training. It's a complete shift in mindset. He has to embrace the violence, even become a part of it, to gain the trust of those involved.
It's almost like he's creating a whole new persona, and that can't be easy, especially for someone whose job is to uphold the law. You have to wonder about the psychological toll that takes on someone. The line between playing a role and becoming that role can get blurry, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's during this time, as Elias is fighting his way through the ranks, that he catches the attention of a figure known only as the Butcher. This guy is like the gatekeeper to the inner circle of the Fight Club. He's brutal, he's connected, and he sees something in Elias. Something that makes him think that Elias could be more than just another fighter.
It's almost like the Butcher represents the next level of this mystery. He's not just a fighter, he's someone who understands the power dynamics at play. Someone who might hold the key to understanding the significance of the blood rune.
Right. And as Elias gets closer to the Butcher, he starts noticing something even more disturbing. The escalating violence. Fights are getting more brutal, and some fighters are disappearing altogether. The sources make it clear that this isn't just about winning or losing anymore. There's a darker purpose behind it all.
It makes you realize that Elias is way over his head. He started out investigating a suspicious death, and now he's caught in a web of potential human trafficking, maybe even worse.
Yeah, and the deeper he goes, the more he hears whispers about this shadowy figure known as the Priest.
The priest.
This guy seems to be the mastermind behind it all, the one calling the shots, orchestrating the fights, and potentially responsible for the disappearances.
So we have this layered structure, right? You have the fighters driven by ambition or desperation. Then you have figures like the butcher who enforce the rules and maintain order. And at the top, you have the priest shrouded in mystery, pulling the strings. It makes you wonder about the kind of control someone like the priest must have to keep an operation like this running.
And that's where Elias finds himself trying to navigate these layers, trying to decipher the meaning of the blood rune and trying to figure out what happened to Razor and the other missing fighters.
Mm.
And it all comes to a head when the butcher leads Elias to this hidden chamber beneath the fight club.
Okay, so we're going from the brutal, chaotic world of the fights to something even more secretive, even more unsettling. What's waiting for Elias in this chamber?
The sources describe it as a scene straight out of a nightmare. A group of figures are chanting. A young fighter is bound and gagged, and standing over him, shrouded in a black robe, is the priest. And on the young fighter's chest, freshly painted in blood, the rune.
Wow. This is where the investigation collides with the ritualistic element we've been talking about. It's no longer just a theory. It's happening right in front of Elias.
And in that moment, Elias knows he can't wait any longer. He has to act.
So what does he do? Does he blow his cover and try to arrest everyone?
He does something even more risky. He attacks.
He attacks.
He attacks.
Yeah.
He knows he can't take on everyone, but he has to disrupt the ritual to stop whatever the priest is about to do to that young fighter. It's a move driven by instinct, by a sense of urgency that overrides any strategic thinking.
And what about the blood rune? Does it play a role in this chaotic scene?
It does. In the middle of the fight, as Elias is battling the priest's followers, he notices the rune on the fighter's chest. But something's different. The way the blood is smeared, the thickness of the lines, it's like
what?
it's not just a symbol, it's a message.
Yeah.
A message hidden in plain sight.
A message. So the blood rune isn't just a mystical symbol or a mark of the cult. It's a way to communicate, maybe even a plea for help.
Exactly. And as Elias is trying to make sense of this, backup arrives. Sirens, wailing police swarming the fight club. It's chaos. But Elias, instead of escaping with everyone else, he makes a decision that surprises everyone.
What does he do?
He stays behind.
He stays behind, with the police raiding the place. That's a bold move, even for Elias.
Yeah, it is. And the sources suggest it's that blood rune message that compels him to stay. He tells the officers he needs to talk to someone, to get more intel. But really, he's bought himself some time to try and decipher that message.
It's a high-stakes gamble, isn't it? He's surrounded by cops, his cover could be blown at any moment, and yet he's focused on this cryptic message. It really speaks to his dedication, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's like he's become fixated on cracking this code, like it's the key to understanding everything that's been happening.
And what does the message reveal? What's hidden within those blood-drawn lines?
Well, it turns out to be a name.
A name.
Serafina. And it hits Elias like a ton of bricks. This isn't just a random name. It's a name from a missing person case he worked on months ago, a case that went cold. A young woman vanished without a trace.
Wow. So now we have a direct link between the Fight Club, the blood rune, and a missing person case. It's no longer just about stopping a shadowy organization. It's about finding a missing woman, potentially saving her life.
The stakes just got a whole lot higher. And time is running out. Elias knows he has to act fast if he wants to find Serafina.
So what does he do? Does he share this information with the police?
He can't. He's still undercover, remember? If he blows his cover now, it could jeopardize everything. So he does something incredibly daring. While the police are busy rounding up the priest and the other fighters, Elias slips away. He follows a hunch, a memory of something he saw in the priest's chamber, a hidden door leading to a network of tunnels beneath the fight club.
He's going even deeper into this world, into the literal underbelly of the operation. It's like he's descending further into a labyrinth, both physically and metaphorically.
And the sources don't hold back on the descriptions. Damp, dark tunnels, the air thick with the smell of mildew and fear. It's a sensory experience that mirrors the descent into this criminal underworld. Elias is facing his own fears, his own doubts, as he ventures further into the unknown.
And what's driving him forward? Is it just the need to solve the case, or is there something more personal at play?
You can feel the shift in his motivation. It's no longer just about duty or ambition. It's about Serafina. It's about rescuing this woman whose name is now forever linked to that blood rune, a symbol that is transformed from a mark of fear into a beacon of hope.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? This detective driven by a sense of justice and a desperate need to save a life, venturing into the heart of darkness. And we're left wondering, will he find Serafina in time? What other horrors await him in those tunnels?
Well, that's the cliffhanger. Our sources leave us with Elias alone in the darkness, racing against time, the fate of Serafina hanging in the balance. But that's all the time we have for today. We'll be back tomorrow for part 1 of a new case. Until then, thanks for listening to the True Detectives podcast. And don't forget to rate and follow the show for more gripping true crime stories.
And remember, the truth is out there waiting to be uncovered.